Can you hear me, Jerry?
I can't see you though.
Yeah, I know. I see Nina, so I guess we're getting the video up.
Okay.
I see Layla anyway, but nobody else.
I see a garbage truck.
Yeah, and I see the garbage truck too.
I'm here.
Oh, is it the video thing? We'll get that sorted.
We having trouble getting the video sorted out?
Sometimes when you set the video, or the webinar, if you don't uncheck a box, this happens. So
Got it.
you got it? Thanks.
Got it.
Anna. You should be able to turn your videos on.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Hello.
I sent you a text, Layla, and said there's something going on with the video, but that's okay. We got it. Don't sweat it.
Nope, nothing's going on. I don't know what you're talking about. It's over there.
Well, it's 1 minute after 6. Do we have everybody we need from the council? Linda, Steve, looks like everybody's here, so. Let me call the meeting to order 1 minute after 6 o'clock. So welcome, everybody. The first thing I get to do tonight is open the envelope for the Citizen of the Year, which, Johnny Carson used to do on Karnak. Who is it? Yeah. Okay, let me open this up here. Okay, as we do every year in June, we announce the Citizen of the Year, and this year it is, let me read this. This year's Citizen of the Year brought considerable professional technical background to the core volunteers who serve our city, its citizens, and the surrounding communities. Knowledge, humor, and commitment have been the hallmarks of that service. Aptly described as a doer, this honor of the year wherever needed with total dedication to making things better. Membership has included the Emergency Volunteer Corps of Nehalem Bay, the Friends of the North Tillamook County Library Board, the Short-Term Rental Oversight Work Group, and the Planning Commission. Service on Public Works Augmentation Team demonstrated a willingness to get dirty when necessary. As many of you may have all out by now figured out, the Citizen of the Year this year is Lee Hiltonbrand.
Yay!
Is Lee with us? I have a little comment to add to that. I first actually, I think when I really met Lee was when the first year I was mayor and I had a thankless job of having to replace Owen Nicholson on the Planning Commission. And Owen is my neighbor. And if you don't know, Owen is still with us and he'll be 98 this September. And he's probably the last World War II veteran still alive in our community. And Owen asked me, who are you going to replace me with? And I said, Lee Hiltonbrand. He said, that's a really good choice. And Lee replaced Owen on the Planning Commission. That was about 6 years ago. So is Lee with us tonight in this little menagerie here?
I bet
I
he
did
is.
see him. He's muted,
There.
but I did see him.
Congratulations, Lee. If you got anything to say, now's your time. Now's your time.
Well, I can only say that I am totally shocked. I absolutely had no idea that I was even being considered. So to be honored by this community is extra special. And I thank those on the nominating committee for recognizing me. And I thank all of you for all the work that you've done over the years to incorporate this event. Thank you all.
Yeah, well, Lee,
Congratulations. That's wonderful.
you're the kind of guy in this community. If I ever needed help with something, you're the guy I could call, and you'd always say, "Yeah, I can help you with that." And yeah, it's a great honor. Congratulations.
Thanks, Mike. And thank you to the council.
You bet.
Congratulations, Lee. I just want to express my congratulations as well. You and I've had the chance to do a few things together. And you're the guy that's everywhere. Everywhere I turn, Lee Hiltonbrand's involved in that process. So, which makes it a better process and a better outcome. So, congratulations, Lee.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay, before we move on to the public comment segment, I want to give Linda a chance to make an announcement. So,
Oh, thank you. I am very excited to announce this next Thursday on the 16th. We're having an emergency preparedness day at Underhill Plaza. We are partnering with the Oregon Department of Human Resources and Oregon Health Authority to put on a display that will look visually like what might happen after a major event in terms of assembly sites and tents and the kinds of things that if the state can go forward and get the funding, we might be able to have access to. So it's really interesting stuff. We're going to be focusing on the Medical Reserve Corps, and we're going to also be focusing on some of the wonderful activity that our volunteers have done. Lee Hiltonbrand being number one on those volunteers. There's a communication tower that we will be using to communicate both with Deschutes County and with Salem. And it is possible because of the good work of PWAT and their ability to put together a tower that allows us to communicate by ham radio outside of the area. And then to top it off, we're going to present community preparedness as a major focus of this event. We'll be able to show you how and what you can do to do go bags, to do emergency cooking, to do the yellow radio, potentially ham. So all of those will be there for you to view, and there'll be somebody there to help you. There'll be tours starting at 11, and they'll go from 11 into 1:30, and I would love to see you all there, and specifically the council. I think it would be wonderful to have you join us on that occasion. So hopefully 6/16, Thursday, from 11 to 1:30, and we'd like all of the community to be there. And if possible, for your fitness, if you could walk, because the parking is going to be horrendous around there. So if you could walk to the event, that would be even better.
great.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Linda. Okay, let's move on to public comment. So this is a chance for anybody in the community who wants to address the council for up to 3 minutes on a non-agenda item. Does not necessarily require a response from the council, and it's not a time to start a debate, but if anybody wants to make a public comment, and now's the time to raise your hand.
Okay, I show Jenna Edgington.
Hi, Jenna.
Hi.
Hi, go ahead. We can hear you.
All right, perfect. Hi, my name is Jenna Edgington. I am a full-time resident in Manzanita, and I am a member of the Planning Commission, but I am speaking here today as a member of the community. I had a wonderful statement prepared for today's meeting, but Layla read my mind and beat me to it this afternoon at the workshop, so I will be concise. My concern is our zoning codes and comprehensive plan are out of date, and work needs to begin to amend them. I think the comp plan still does align with the vision of the majority of the citizens in Manzanita, but it does need tuning so that the zoning codes and the comp plan are more aligned. So thank you for addressing this earlier today, and I offer any help I can to get this going.
That's wonderful, Jenna. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenna. Do we have anyone else, Nina?
I have no hands raised.
Okay, well, let's move on then to the consent agenda. Tonight, we're being asked to approve the minutes from the May 4th work session and regular session and bills for payment. Are there any questions from the council on the consent agenda?
I have a question. I'm just curious about the $150,000 bond repayment. I should know what that means, but I'm not used to seeing that very often.
Sorry, Hans, that was for the performance bond guarantee for the Highlands.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
I move to accept the consent agenda.
I second.
Been moved and seconded to accept the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Thank you. Okay, let's go to our new business tonight. And the first thing we have is a pharmacology fee update. Layla, do you want to tee us off on that one?
Well, sure. I'm going to hand it over actually to Dave Larmouth from Recology, but Dave reached out to me last month to provide us with an update on rates. So with that, Dave, why don't you take the reins and let us know if you need to share your screen and we can give you the rights to do so.
Okay. No, I don't have a screen to share unless you have specific questions that come up. I can pull up documents if we need to. But thank you. Can you hear me all right? Let's start there.
Yes, we can hear you and see you.
Great. That's good news. So Mayor Scott, councilors, thank you for having me here this evening. My name is Dave Larmouth. I'm the rate analyst for Recology Western Oregon. I have a brief operations update for you and then a rate request for your consideration. I wanted to give you a collections update. We've had some management changes. Chris Carey is our new regional manager. Chris is new to Recology, but he has several years of industry experience. Scott Meathy, who you may have met, he was our operations supervisor for a long time, is now the Coast Operations Manager. He's been with the company since 2003. Your residential driver is still Carl Peters, and your commercial driver is Mark Olson. They both do a great job for us. We're lucky to have them. They're sort of out here on their own, working out of the Nehalem yard. So it's great that they're able to work hard and get the job done without as much help and support maybe as some of our drivers who are located up out of our Warrenton office. So hiring has been tough for us, but we are running close to a full crew right now. It's hard to find drivers and mechanics. On the customer service side, we're having staffing issues in our customer service department. Last I heard, we were down 4 positions, which impacts hold times. Our staff are continuing to work remotely. So we do have some reps who can't connect to the phone system over the internet, but they can answer emails. That means that the best way and often the fastest way to reach us is via our email address, which is rwoinfo@recology.com. That email address is on our website and on our bills as well. But if you need us, that's a good way to get a hold of us. As for the rate review, we did submit a report. We're not requesting an adjustment for most of the collection rates, but we did want to go through the report. Revenue has been close to projections, though we've seen larger than expected inflation. It's averaging 8 to 8.5% recently. Our labor expenses are up due to higher wages, increased cost of benefits. The disposal line goes up due to an increase at the transfer station. Fuel, which is a significant expense for us every year, has gone up a lot. It's averaging in Oregon $5.97 a gallon for diesel. A year ago, it was $3.38 a gallon. Those are statewide averages for Oregon. For our other operational expenses, everything we use, carts, containers, parts, and trucks, the computers that go in the trucks, the chips that go in the computers that go in the trucks, are all tough to get. And when we can get them, the prices are at a premium. And so the most of those issues are connected to the supply chain challenges that we hear about on the nightly news. We have had no general rate adjustment here for the past 2 years. Because we signed the new agreement recently, there's no rate adjustment for the collection rates this year as well. This is consistent with our approach in Nehalem and Wheeler for this year. We have adjusted the debris box ton rates by 6% to reflect the increase in disposal ton rates at the transfer station. So the county raised the rate that they charge us to deliver material. So when folks order a debris box from us, they pay a haul fee and they pay a tip fee based on the weight of the material inside the box. So that new rate is $102.59 a ton. These changes can be found on page 4 of the rate sheet. So you'll see all of the other rate codes that we provide have a zero change, but it's 6% for both the construction and demolition debris and the regular trash rate. We're asking you to approve this rate request so we can get the new rates in the system effective July 1st. That's all I have prepared, but I'm happy to answer any questions you have or take any feedback about us you'd care to share.
Well, it certainly looks like all businesses are going to have challenges going forward with inflation right now, particularly fuel costs. I'm sure you guys are dealing with all that. Any questions from the Council for Ecology?
I guess just a comment and appreciation for no increase at a time when you would expect that we would have seen one. So I understand that there's reasons for that, but extend my appreciation because everybody is faced with the same thing with cost of living increases and grocery cost and gasoline costs. So this is one thing that our citizens and our community members won't have to face. So thank you.
Well, you add to that very good service at the same time. I mean, they do a really
Absolutely.
good job.
I did have a question on whether you've ever seen a Star Wars movie, but I decided I probably shouldn't ask.
Is it? It's not as bad as it looks in here, but the half of the room that's visible is Star Wars. The half that's not shown is Green Bay Packers themed. So I have two vices.
Well, you were doing pretty well till you said the Green Bay Packers, but thank you.
You bet.
So is anyone in the public have a comment or a question for Ecology? We have
no hands raised.
Dave with us. Okay, are we expected to take some action here tonight, Leila? Do we have to approve? What do we have to approve?
Yes, you would need to approve the recommended rate increase, which is the 6% on the big boxes, construction and garbage disposal fee. Debris box disposal fees, yeah.
Can I have a motion from someone to do that? Somebody has to be brave and step up and make the motion.
I move that we approve the increased cost from Ecology on the box and what's it called, Leila?
It's the Dave, maybe you can jump in. It's the debris
Sure.
box, right?
It's the debris box disposal rates.
Okay, the debris box disposal rates. Thank you, Dave.
Sure.
Second.
Any further discussion from anybody? Okay, all in favor of approving this rate increase, say aye.
Aye.
Unopposed, say nay. Thank you.
And just for the record, I think I heard Councillor Nuttall second that before Councillor Tonja. So we'll just make sure the minutes reflect it. At least I said it at the same time. And my people are paying attention for the minutes. So thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Dave.
you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Dave.
Okay, we're going to move on to our next item of new business, which is the short-term rental committee resolution. And let me kick that off. You have before you resolution 2208 to hopefully approve tonight to establish the members of the short-term rental committee. And I want to speak to that first, and then I'm going to ask my cohort Jerry to speak afterwards, and then we can have some discussion. You know, the city charter and our rules for the council state that the mayor is supposed to appoint committees approved by the council. And for the first time, we kind of stepped out of that zone and formed a 3-person selection committee, which was made up of myself and Councilman Jerry Spegman and City Manager Leila Amon. We had 16 applicants for 5 positions, and everyone from the former short-term rental work group applied, though it was never our intention to reappoint everyone in that work group in its entirety. But the resolution you have before you does include 2 former members of the work group are part of this new committee. The selection committee, we met several times over the last couple of months, long discussions. We divided the candidates up into categories because they had to fit into distinct little buckets, and it made it rather complicated. So we were filling, it wasn't like we were filling 5 general positions with 16 candidates. We had to fit everybody into these various categories. And then I was committed to make sure that all the stakeholders were representative, and it kind of turned, frankly, it kind of turned into a Chinese puzzle. But I interviewed 3 candidates for the Planning Commission position. I interviewed and talked to other candidates. And in the end, we had to make quite a few compromises. And then we found consensus, and we came up with a committee that's before you tonight. And, you know, in the earlier discussions, I always felt that all the stakeholders should be representative, even though I know that wasn't a unanimous opinion among the councilors. We had the vote on that, discussion on that earlier. But with this slate, you have a member from the Planning Commission, a representative from professional property managers. You have a member of the former short-term rental work group who can provide continuity from their past work to this new group. We have a member from the Tillamook County Short-Term Rental Committee. You've got 2 short-term rental owners and 2 concerned full-time homeowners who are impacted by short-term rentals. So I want to thank the former short-term rental work group for all you guys did. And this new group is going to continue and build on your efforts, hopefully. This was probably the most contentious issue I've ever had to deal with since I've been working in city government. We all know this is a really hot issue, and it required a lot of compromise. No matter who we picked or how we handled the process, we knew we'd be criticized. And I want to apologize to anyone who feels that they were overlooked, or that we didn't contact you, or you weren't interviewed. And it just was a tough process. And I want to remind you that when we do these meetings, these will be public meetings, so everybody will be able to provide some input as a member of the public. But in the end, sometimes as a leader, you got to make tough decisions, and you have to stand by those decisions and deal with the fallout that comes with them. And this has been one of those decisions. So I'm asking the council tonight to approve this committee as constituted. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jerry to make a few comments if he wants.
Thanks, Mayor. I want to start by thanking the mayor because I was actually pleasantly surprised when he asked me to participate with him in reviewing the applicants for this committee. I think he clearly recognized that he and I had fundamental areas of disagreement about how the committee should be composed. And I think it was a show of real strength and leadership on his part to reach out to me and to have the conversations that we had. And they were lengthy conversations, and we went back and forth, and we spent a significant amount of time. And I think that the committee that has been proposed tonight reflects a balancing of interests and a compromise among differing viewpoints, which is consistent with the degree of discord within the community on this issue. I think this committee should reflect that we are approaching this issue with a committee that has a very significant number of differing opinions and viewpoints on the issue. That was the nature of our conversations, and they were hard conversations, and they went on for quite a while. And I think we arrived at a slate that reflects that balance of interests and viewpoints across the community. The one thing I would like to point out, and I'm not sure if we need to formally, I guess we would have to formally amend the proposed membership. We chose 5 members among 16 applicants. The 6th and 7th members are non-voting ex officio liaisons to the committee, the representative from the Planning Commission and the representative from the North County representative from the Tillamook County STR committee. So those 2 individuals were not among the 5 selected among the 16 applicants. Well, one of those 2 happened to apply, but is serving in that non-voting ex officio liaison role. So the proposal, I believe, incorrectly calls them both voting members.
Any questions from the council on?
I just have a comment about it. I am, while I have deep respect for both you, Mike, and Jerry, I'm really disappointed in the process. When we had talked prior to your doing this process, we had talked about interviewing all of the candidates, or at least in some kind of contacting all the candidates, and that was not done. I think the process itself was flawed, though I accept the outcome of that process. And my request is that we look closely at the process as we move forward, and we come back with some recommendations about procedure and process as we move forward into this next year. I think some of the concern and disappointment has as much to do with the way it was done as anything else. And I think it is really important to keep the trust of the citizens and to make it a more open and more transparent process, that we look closely at the process and look at potential changes. And I'd like to have some suggestions and come back to that in our next council meeting in July.
I did talk to Layla about this. We've had a discussion about that. And I admit, Linda, this was cumbersome for us. And she was going to look at putting together a process for future committee appointments instead of just having the mayor appoint them, have a more detailed process of what we need to do. Is that right, Layla? Is that something you could put together for us to look at next month?
For sure. And certainly because we do have, we're doing good on time. So if the council does wish to provide me with some guidance on what that looks like, I could offer an outline that could be helpful to help move it along, but we could make an amendment to the council procedures for city council meetings. That would be the appropriate way to do it if we want it to sort of live beyond all of us. It gets sort of outlined in there. It becomes something that both this council, future councils, as well as community members can look to understand how the process works so that we're all clear.
Well, so I've been doing some thinking about that. So I'd like to propose a couple of ideas. And again, I think it's something that we need to work on as a group, and these, just thoughts that I've had. But I think it should be more than just a mayor appointment. I think there should be a selection committee that would include a counselor and a citizen to look at the applications for all of the committees that we have. I think there should be an interview process that's documented so that there's some kind of process that we go through, and that either that the finalist that comes out of that is recommended to the mayor, who then chooses to take it to the council or something along that line. I just think it needs to be more than just the mayor. And I think community involvement could be really helpful. I'm not sure there, you could appoint a counselor and a committee member for a year. You could appoint a counselor and a committee member per appointment. So there are lots of ways to go about that, but I think it should be more than just the mayor.
Well, I agree with you, Linda, because I tell you, as being mayor for the last 6 years, this has been and of course, Gary before me, it's an awful lot of burden just to put on the mayor. The way our rules say now, the mayor will just make all the appointments. And I think we've moved beyond that in our community.
Mayor, can I?
Anyway, go ahead. Yes, Steve.
Thanks. First of all, Linda, thank you. I think you expressed my feelings very well. I think it's mostly disappointment in the process. Well, for me, it's almost all disappointment in the process, and I don't need to restate that. It's not about who you selected. To be honest, I only know one person that you selected, so there's no reason for me to suggest otherwise. I don't know. I don't know these people. I would add, though, some thinking that I've been doing about, because of the rather significant interest in the community, not only in terms of the discussion happening at the community level, but also the number of, I think probably a record number of applicants for a committee position in our community at, I think it was 16 or 17 or something like that.
16 for 5 spots.
16 for 5 spots. And I started thinking about it, maybe we think about adding a couple of additional spots to that 5-person voting block, because I don't think a 7-person voting block or voting group is unwieldy, and it would allow for several more people to be involved in the process. And if we were to do that, I'd like to see us go through relook at the candidates that applied. I don't think we need to go out and recruit again. Just look at the candidates that we applied, conduct a process that can be defined by however we decide to define it, probably more than what we did in the first phase of it. But then select a couple of folks that could be helpful to the committee. And I think we could add some great talent. It sounds like of the 16 applicants, you had some really good folks that unfortunately were not considered or couldn't be considered because of the limit of 5 people. So I would encourage to at least consider adding a couple of more people to the committee, taking it back over the next 30 days, conducting the appropriate process and coming back to the council next month with a resolution that includes 2 more positions. I just think the community wants to be involved, and here's an opportunity for us to allow that to happen.
Are you saying, Steve, that we would go back and review the entire slate, or just pick up 2 more people from the existing candidates? Or the existing
from the existing 16 applications that we look at, is there 2 additional folks on that 16 member application process that would be appropriate for adding to the committee? I think I have to believe there are. I know you've mentioned to me that you had some great candidates. Jerry's mentioned to me that there were great candidates. I just think the community is reaching out to us. Let's reach back and say, you know what, we want to add a couple people to make it even a broader community representation on the committee.
How would you structure those 2 people? I mean, everybody fits right now into some sort of a bucket. Are they going to be a general community member, or a short-term rental owner, or one of each? Or
I know that is a huge issue among some folks, and so for me, I'm just looking for community voice. To be honest with you, I spent several years of my life going through a short-term rental work group process, so it's pretty not only near and dear to my heart, but I know I think I have a pretty good handle on what can be accomplished and what cannot be accomplished. The rules and the laws that exist in our country, our state, and even our locale limit what we can actually do, right? There's some things we cannot do. And the committee is going to find those out as they go through this process. So there's some constraints on the committee anyway. Plus, if they do it the way we did in the first work group, which I want to reach out again and tell that work group, and several of them I see are with us tonight, thank you. I thought they did a fantastic job, and I was certainly very appreciative of the work that they did over a couple of years to come back with the report that they did. And if I can make one other comment, I've been hearing from folks about, well, that work group really missed the boat and they didn't do what they should have done. Please remember that original work group, when they were charged by the mayor with a task, were given very limited responsibilities, and the work group worked very hard to stay within those limitations, and work group did what they thought they could do within those limitations. Plus, they added in the final report some narrative about how they thought there were other places to go with this process, and that we needed to establish a standing committee to take those tasks on. So please, folks, recognize that work group did what they were asked to do, and I thought that they did a really fine job, and I once again thank them for that effort. So I'm okay with community members at large, if you will, being part of that process. I just think that we have an opportunity here to broaden the perspective on the committee and include more voices, and why wouldn't we want to do that?
okay. Any other comments from the councilors? I'm going to open this up for public comment, and then we'll come back and discuss this among ourselves some more. Unless anybody has anything else they want to say right now.
Well, I'm just a brief comment. I agree with all of Linda's comments, and the process needs some polishing. I do support the outcome. And to go to Steve's comments, it just seems like there is a certain amount of time urgency here. There's some important work to do there. And if we have a process that we need to refine for future appointments, I mean, is the recommendation that we pick a couple of people with a undecided process for making those appointments, or do we pause the whole process until a couple more people can be added to the committee? I think we could add 2 people almost at any time, but I would be inclined to say maybe we add them as part of a refined process of doing so.
I wouldn't have a problem with that. I totally understand, Hans, where you're coming from with that it makes perfect sense to define the process first. So I was just trying to include more people in the process because we have such a almost unprecedented level of interest, both on the number of applications received and just what we're hearing in the community itself.
Okay, let's open this for public comment, and then we'll come back to the council and try to find a conclusion to this. Do we have anybody from the public that wants to address this issue?
We do. First is Michael Garner.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Michael. We can hear you.
I just had a question about the resolution itself. I don't see in the resolution that it really lays out what the committee is to do, what the goals are, what their responsibilities are. Is that laid out separately someplace?
Yeah, I can answer that real quick, Michael. The city council passed a resolution establishing the committee, which has sort of the basics and lays out the charge of the committee. And I believe, sorry, I don't know what resolution number that is, but that was month before last.
22-08, I think. Sorry, Leila.
Okay, thanks.
So it was April?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, I can
And
go back.
I'll look at that, yeah,
I can go back and look at that. Thanks. Thanks very much.
you bet.
Next is Elizabeth Johnston.
Hello, this is actually Patrick Johnson.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
I just wanted to share that as somebody who is a person who comes to our house once a month and who also rents. We listened in on the process for the last couple of years, led by Steve. I'd like to reiterate the things that Steve mentioned and Linda mentioned, and I would say that the committee built up a significant amount of trust, and whether it handled and fixed every single thing, it made huge movement toward bringing a lot of different groups together, and it built trust. And the process as it is today is about to potentially break down that trust. This is a huge source of income for our community. We all want to work together to do this right. And there's so many people who are concerned about how this all came together and the level of interaction and non-interaction that took place. I think if you want to start this off the right way, I think it'll be important to have the community believe in this process from day one.
Thank you, Patrick.
Okay, next is Gerald Weiniger.
You can hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead, Gerald.
2 months ago, you all voted on how many members there were going to be on this committee. You all voted and approved it. And to now step in after you've picked the people to fill that, I do not think is a good idea. It's time to move ahead. There are a lot of people who agree with what you're doing, beside those who don't agree. So, like the mayor said, it's a very difficult thing to do, and he's done it. Please move on. Thank you.
Thanks, Gerald.
Okay, next is Leela Salmon or Joe Newhouse.
No, it's Joe Newhouse. I first want to thank the council for doing the work to organize this committee. I was on the former committee with Steve. I'll be on the future committee. I also, as Steve said, want to just give kudos to the let's call it old committee. We did do a lot of work. We were charged with looking at 10.3, the ordinance, and that's what we focused on. But there's so much more to do. And I like Steve's proposal to add 2 more people. I think one of the reasons that our work group was so successful was that we did get a lot of public input. We had people on the committee, but we had a lot of other people who just attended a lot of the meetings, who had some really insightful things to say that helped us to form better ordinances. And I hope that the group can do that going forward, but having people on the committee who can vote, who have had experience with the issues, I think can only help. I agree with your idea that maybe adding 2 people with an interview process is a good idea. It doesn't have to happen tomorrow. It doesn't have to happen this month, but if the committee is set to meet at some point, if the 11 people who were not interviewed could be informed that there will be some kind of interview process and there will be the potential to add some at-large positions, they could attend those meetings and be as up to date as anybody else who's on the committee, so that if and when they are chosen to be on the committee, there would be no learning curve. So it wouldn't have to be 6 months from now, or if it was 6 months from now, they would always have the background that they would need to just jump right in. Thanks.
Thanks, Joe. Do you have anyone else who wants to speak, Nina?
Looks like that's it.
Okay, let's take this back to the council. So more discussion. Anyone got anything else they want to say?
Well, I would support Steve's suggestion of adding 2 additional people. I would also support Hans that it be done after the selection process is finalized so that we have an appropriate process to follow. I think Joe's suggestion, if we do that, if the council does agree that people participate in the meetings, is a really good way to keep it consistent and not have a information lag.
Well, let me make a suggestion, see if you guys concur. I would suggest that we approve the resolution before us tonight as constructed. Allow Leila to put together a process that we can vote on and look at next month for future committee appointments, let's say, and she could put together a resolution to add 2 more members to this committee going down the road, if that's how you guys feel you want to go. But I'm going to leave it up to you to tell me what you want to do.
I'm comfortable passing this slate, this resolution, and then looking at a new process for appointments, and then considering adding 2 people to the, I see them as that they're very similar and they have a flow to them, but I don't know about doing them all in the same motion and being confident that they, don't end up stepping on each other's toes.
So it should be sequential, is what you're saying.
That's in my opinion.
Yeah.
I wonder, Hans and Linda, whether, and I'd have to look at the resolution again, is there a way, and Leila, this is probably for you, but is there a way that we could say up to 7 voting members? so that we have a placeholder there for some future time, hopefully sooner than later, because we have an active group of applicants. I wouldn't want to waste those people by going through another process. That was the whole purpose of doing it. And if we can quickly manage developing a process, then we could quickly manage going through that process to select a couple of additional. But if we just had a placeholder saying up to 7 voting members.
I think if the council elects to do that, we could just add a recital that says, whereas 2 additional voting members, at-large voting members will be added at such time as the council completes a process to appoint them. So then we just sort of slip it into this resolution, and that basically is a policy step for us to then implement. And we would also want the resolution to acknowledge, I apologize, I should have made that more clear in the recital, that the ex officio non-voting members are sort of separated out from those voting members. But that might be the quickest way to do it, Councilor Nuttall, is just to add a simple whereas, and you can state that in the motion, and then I will revise the resolution after the hearing meeting to reflect that.
Can I make a motion without verbatim words in the whereas based upon what you just described? Or do I actually need to come up with a whereas that, I guess.
Let me think for a second. I would love for you to be able to just plop the language in. I don't think it's that hard. So I could just do that really quickly, I think. Keep talking.
Oh.
I can multitask.
I can sit here and try to draft it, but I'm thinking it's better for you to draft it. You would know more about that than I certainly would. I do appreciate consideration of the 2 additional people. I think it adds to the process. And in the end, we're looking for the best outcome. For me, the more voices we have in that process and decision, then I think it will end up with a better product. So I'm just very, very appreciative of everybody's consideration. So I'm trying to, as they say,
Well, and hopefully we'll have an idea of what that process will be by the next council meeting. So it should move fairly quickly after that.
You have any comments on this, Jerry? You're kind of quiet over there.
No, you'll recall I was all supportive of having a committee made up of 5 members of the community, 5 neighborhood residents. So if we add 2 more such people, I'll be fine. I do agree with Hans, though, that let's get started. We got a good group. We got plenty on our table to deal with. And if we can add 2 additional community members down the road, I think that's fine. But, I certainly agree. And I think we all agree that we need a better process, and one that is clearly articulated and made part of council rules. We had no such process in place for this. So yes, we can take it on the chin for doing it clumsily, but it's not like we looked a process written down on paper in the eye and said, we reject that. We didn't have a process. So now we're committed as a council to get a process and get it in place and use it going forward. And I'm all in favor of that.
Okay. So you ready to make this motion, Steve, or are you? Layla got the language?
Yeah, he's ready.
Okay.
He's ready. Okay. So what I would recommend is in the recital, it says, whereas Mayor Scott, Councilor Spegman, and City Manager Amon unanimously recommend the following candidates for each formal position. So I want to add formal to form the initial short-term rental committee. So that reflects back to the list that we talked about. And then, so we list those 5. Whereas 2 additional at-large voting members will be appointed to the committee at a subsequent meeting. And then whereas the following non-voting members shall include, except Phil Mannon, Amy Van Dyke, etc.
The only thing that's not there that you mentioned before was having those appointments happen after a process has been established.
Right. Whereas 2 additional at-large voting members will be appointed to the committee at a subsequent meeting once a process has been established.
I can vote yes for
It's
that.
not as elegant as I would like, but
That works for me.
I will so move based upon the city manager's statement.
Smart.
on the record.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second
I
it.
second. Oh,
I think
Hans,
Hans
go ahead.
first, so I'll give it to Hans. Is there any further discussion on this before we vote?
I think this is a really good resolution. I'm really pleased.
All in favor, say aye.
I,
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. Sounds like it's unanimous. Okay, I think we completed that piece of business for tonight, and we're going to move on now to turn the floor over to Layla to discuss short-term rental ordinance violation discussion.
Yeah, so this is a carryover from a discussion that we all had together today. Sorry, not today. We all had at our last meeting about the short-term rental ordinance violation. So 1003, which is what the ordinance that governs our short-term rental program, includes a provision in which the city can take if the city issues 3 ordinance violations within a year, the short-term rental license can be revoked. And just kind of based on some of our discussions in the past, I had some conversations with our police chief and some of our officers and community members too about what ways the city could try to be, to be more responsive to some of the issues that we're facing, and noise being kind of one of the big things that we hear about. But those are also one of the hardest things for our officers to actually issue citations to. So what we discussed was, and we've talked about this before, so just kind of to remind folks what I'm driving at is the short-term rental ordinance. You do have to get 3 violations in a year in order to have your license removed. I feel that's pretty lenient, given how just challenging it is to issue those types of violations. But what I would suggest we discuss, and what kind of came up naturally in our discussion, was this idea of doing kind of a three violations ever, and your license is removed. And so our thinking behind that was having sort of a stricter requirement would put the onus on owners to ensure that whoever's staying in their short-term rental. So it increases the owner's sort of responsibility to manage who is in their units, and that those that continually allow sort of loud noise, our officers now have a path to issue a report to our short-term program manager, who can then issue an ordinance violation of 1003. So we sort of solve the issue of not being able to issue a violation to the tenant. We're actually, it's the space that's being issued the violation. So I wanted to sort of throw that back out there. We talked about it in a workshop context and engage with the council in a discussion around that and see if there is appetite to proceed with that. And if so, it would just require a pretty surgical fix to our 1003 ordinance that we could do fairly quickly, but would certainly allow us a leg up in terms of our ability to manage sort of obnoxious noise levels and other infractions that we can actually have some ability to impact it. So So I will step back and open it up for discussion, and happy to answer any questions too.
Well, I think this kind of accentuates the fact that, having a short-term rental license in Manzanita is a privilege and not a right. But I'd be interested in knowing, do we have any idea how many violations we write in any given year historically?
That's a great question, and I don't know. We actually do. We have a list of violations in terms of noise complaints, but we have issued very few violations because of the problem that we have is that there has to be sufficient evidence in order for us to issue a violation based on the short-term rental ordinance. And as I've described before, it's difficult because neighbors often don't want to be the folks that are sort of complaining about tenants in maybe their friend's house that's visiting, and so there's this is what I've learned from talking with folks, that there's a reticence to sort of report things. And then on our part, as I mentioned in a previous meeting, I had to sort of administer a decision around a dog poop case. And the issue was the person making the complaint was afraid to submit the evidence or their name. And so we were aware of the complaint, but we couldn't actually issue any violations because we didn't have the evidence. What I've talked with our officers about doing now, and we have a good communication around this, is that they can now go, and if they witness the violations, they can write a report, issue that to Judy, who manages our short-term rental program, and then Judy can issue a violation because she has a police report, and that's something that's defensible for her to use in order to do that. So it's a very long answer to your question, which is to say we haven't issued very many because it's really hard and people don't want to be the bad guy. And so we've set it up now that we can be the bad guy, but by being the good guy, in effect, really trying to help address some of the more larger issues that we're dealing with. But it's a tough thing to deal with. And I think when you have 3 violations per year and it's super hard to issue a violation, it makes it difficult to revoke that. And I want to be clear, like, we're not trying to revoke permits. We're just trying to create an environment where we can effectively address and enforce our ordinances.
Mayor, can I make a couple of comments? I really appreciate where Layla is headed with this, but I do have some concerns. And so let me start first with a little nuancing of the violation issue. And we discussed this at length in the original work group. And what we discovered is that we, from a city perspective, don't really know how many violations are actually occurring. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that we've encouraged residents of the community neighboring to short-term rentals not to call necessarily the city, but to call the short-term rental agency, for example, and ask for them to take care of the problem. The short-term rental work group felt like that does a couple of things that unintended consequences. One is it prevents us from really knowing how many violations are actually occurring. And 2, it incentivizes the short-term rental industry to management companies to keep it from the city in terms of how many violations are happening, because the neighbors are calling and they're calling the short-term rental management company, but the city is completely unaware of the fact that these violations are occurring. As a result, the short-term rental work group asked as one of their short-range strategies that we implement a one phone number call system, where there is a phone number for the entire city. If you have a short-term rental problem or issue, you call that number. That complaint is taken by a 24-hour-a-day operator, and those complaints are forwarded to the appropriate parties. It would allow us to track the complaint, and it would also allow us to process, because we've got a formal complaint, and we can go through the the abatement process. So, and then the other issue I would make a comment about is I think that three violations in a year, I totally understand that's problematic. But I also think 3 violations in the lifetime of the rental may be problematic because some of these rentals have been existing for 20 years, 25 years. And to put them on notice, I mean, I think about the 3 strikes and you're out and the unintended consequences that happened with that legal system. And it seems to me that if we did something like three strikes in 5 years or 3 strikes in some determinate time, that seems reasonable to me. That makes more sense than saying it's 3 strikes, because like I said, some could get 3 strikes in 2 years. Some have existed for 20 years. So it's, anyway, those are my comments.
Yeah, we do have that system now with signs all over town, which have phone numbers on them, which people call, as you say, Steve, and then they, you know, if it's with a professional property manager, they rush to solve the problem to, you know, because they want to protect their business and their rentals, which is understandable.
Well, and we may call the management firm as our first line of response, but at least we'll know about the violation, right? And right now we don't have a good handle on the total number of violations that are occurring because of that.
The other reason I do think people, and we hear this around town, they complain about short-term rentals all the time. But it's a general complaint. It's not about a specific event that took place, but they just complain about the issue. Now, didn't we have a complaint? Didn't we issue a citation recently from a situation where they called the number on the sign on the house and they didn't get a response within 20 minutes, and then they called the non-emergency number of police and the police came and wrote a citation? Don't we have an example of that fairly current?
Yeah, in fact, we do. So yes, we actually just issued a citation about 3 weeks ago because of non-response to the 20-minute response requirement in the ordinance. So yes.
I'm wondering if we could move forward with this process. I think Steve made 2 really good points. I think the point about well, first of all, I agree the 3 in 5 or 7, whatever years really does make a lot of sense. In terms of the phone number, that may be something that would require more time to institute and should maybe be something we should definitely think about and maybe put in the hands of the new short-term rental group. But I'd hate to wait not to implement some of this for a kind of administrative process. It may take us a little bit longer. So I'm suggesting we go ahead with the 3 violations of, say, 5 years, and then work on the telephone number, because I think both of those are really excellent ideas.
Yeah, and that was kind of my intent. I didn't expect that we would begin work on the we actually did the legwork for that. So it's literally making a phone call and hiring a phone answering service. We did all the research about how that could happen. So it's not, but I agree with you. It should be the purview of the new committee, maybe as a first order of business.
Yeah, I was thinking as we have this discussion, here we are, we just appointed a committee to work on these issues, and maybe we should let them have a shot at it first instead of us, unless if people feel there's some sense of urgency here that we have to do something right away before they get going. I don't know, speak to me. It seems like something we should throw in their lap, though.
I think the code enforcement issue is something we've been talking about for a while. And maybe we should act on that and ask the new team, new short-term rental group, to deal with the telephone number and other issues that surface. But this has been ongoing for at least 2 meetings.
Will that require an ordinance change? So isn't it in the ordinance? It talks about the violations. It would require us to go back and modify 10.3 to change the parameters about when the license would be revoked, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Yeah.
So we'd probably have to have a couple of readings and have it officially put it on the agenda for next month and officially change the ordinance, right?
Yes, sir.
Right.
But then it sounds like there might be other ordinance changes coming by recommendation of the committee as well. So, I mean, in theory, we can change the ordinance every few months, but it's kind of tedious.
I'm not sure I expect the work of the new committee to be as wedded or as embedded in the ordinance as the work group was. As Steve pointed out in the earlier discussion, the charge of the work group was narrowly limited to working on the ordinance. I think the new committee is going to be taking on some broader themes. And so I don't want to, I guess I would hate to see them get too bogged down too quickly on some of the minutia in the ordinance. I think something like the duration of the 3 strikes rule, it would seem to me that, what we probably need as a council to make some rational judgment there is a better sense of how many violations we typically have and might expect with a renewed emphasis on enforcement, and how long STR licenses are generally held. If they were turning over in a community, if they were turning over rapidly and people only held them for 2 or 3 years at a time, you probably wouldn't use a 5-year standard. If people are holding them for 30 years at a time, you might use a 10-year standard. So if we could just get a little bit of data on that, I think council might be in a position to make that policy call. So I think the hard one for us is right now we know we don't have that many violations surfacing. We project that with a new emphasis on enforcing the newly revised ordinance, we may have more violations moving forward. So I think if we could get some kind of a sense of what the math would be and how long people typically hold a license, we'll be in a better position to call that. My gut says you're probably onto something with 5 years, but maybe it's 7, maybe it's 10.
Yeah, we can do that. Judy tracks the year in which the license was originally issued. So we can give you the average. Again, the number, the data with respect to the violations, like everyone's described here, is hard to come by.
Sure.
But again, just try to button things up. And I would agree too, I think the short-term rental committee, certainly I think if council feels that they would benefit from having additional study of this, I would welcome them to do that. But I think the larger policy issues for that committee with respect to our STR freeze is probably where we all want that focus to start. But I think that's a great suggestion in terms of duration. I will, if the council feels that it's worthy to bring this back next month, we can also wait. I'm happy to do that and just bring that information and just see if we want to take it any further than that. So
it sounds like you got to do a little research, a little information.
That would give it some analytics, right?
Yeah,
it's not getting the length of time that a license holder, that's not hard to pull. So.
And you know what, historically, as some of us have been around to know that when licenses get pulled from somebody, they appeal to the city council and they are in front of us asking for another decision. We've had that happen in the past a few times.
I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet.
It's been a while, but over the years we've had a few that lost their license and then came and appealed to us, but whatever.
Yeah.
So shall we do that next month?
Yeah. Shall we do that next month then?
It sounds like that's what we're going to do. You're going to gather some more information for us and we discuss it some more, and maybe we'll push it forward then.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
A longer
make sense with everybody? Nod your head or give me the thumbs down. I don't care. Yeah, it sounds like we're all on the same page.
All right, that's great. That's good. That's progress.
Let's move on to our last item of new business then, which is the charter franchise agreement.
Yeah, so I'm sure, like all of you, this is, I actually have to admit I'm a little embarrassed that we're ahead of the game on this one because it expires in July of 24. I thought it said 22. So we were just getting ahead of it, but I figured why not just have a look at it. if you have any concerns, Dan and I discussed this as well, and we would like to propose a similar limitation that I think y'all were supportive. I don't think you were supportive of, which is for planned or any kind of maintenance, removal of trees 6 inches or larger should be coordinated through us, and then not allowing the use of chemicals in the city. Otherwise, I think that, we didn't see any other additions or changes. You got some time to think about it. If you do find something, I'll bring it back to you the closer we get, but I did just want to get a little direction if that felt like something you'd like us to pursue with them. It did take us some time with the PUD, I should mention, and to get to what I thought was an agreement with them, and that was supposed to go to their board. But I'm having a conversation with their president to talk through that as well. So it might take us 2 years to work through this with charter. So we might be getting ahead of the game here, but I just wanted to confirm that I'm representing the council's wishes by requesting those changes.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Leila, as we go through this process, I'd love to have a chance to spend some time talking with you. Years and years and years ago, I was involved in the formation of the Metropolitan Area Cable Communications Commission, which I don't even know if they still exist, but maybe they do. Maybe by your response, maybe they
That's
do.
so cool. I didn't know there was such a thing.
Well, it was because we were trying to connect about 100 fire stations all together on an institutional network. And there, if in the Portland area, if you don't know this, back then there was 2 networks running on cable. One was an institutional network that connected all public facilities, fire stations, police stations, libraries, etc. And then there was the broadband network that served the community in terms of television and eventually data. But back then, when we were in the midst of forming that commission, there was a lot of negotiating room between the providers and the community relative to their desire to occupy and have a license to operate within the city. And I guess that would be a question I would have is there still that room? And I think about things like having public access. I think about things where people like the library has service provided to it as part of the franchise agreement, or there's public stations that can go to and use the facility on cable access, or we actually had studios that were available to the public for people to create content for cable. So I don't know whether, 30 years has passed, 30 years anyway, has passed. So I'm sure things are completely different, but I just wanted to mention it because we got 2 years, it sounds like. So is there an opportunity you can only get it if you ask, right? And so I'm not shy about asking if there's an opportunity, a door someplace that would give us some things in exchange for the opportunity to serve the community of Manzanita. Then I think we should be thinking about that.
Well, I think that's great. And now I feel awesome that I brought this to you 2 years ahead of time. Maybe you and I could have just connect about that offline over in the near future. And I'd love to hear more and just see. I would like to find a way to leverage these relationships to the benefit of our community as much as we can. So would definitely appreciate your feedback on that for sure.
I was just thinking that those were the days where we were operating at 600 baud on cable. So that just shows you how old that, or how long ago that was. So.
Any other questions on this? Okay, do you got what you need tonight on that then, Leila?
I did, thank you.
Okay. Well, why don't we just wrap this up and move on to your city manager's report
I
then?
know, I'm feeling like I gave you too short of a meeting tonight and we'll just be way busy, but
You're spoiling us.
I guess we got some good work done. And in large part, I had a chunk of time set aside for update on the architecture next steps. But I think the council's aware of this, but we've had a change of project managers from Klosh Group. So actually the guy that we've gotten, Jeff Caldwell, he'll be here next month, but he is a local. So he's the president of the company, and our project manager, Jim, was wonderful, but he got stolen away from Klosh. He's going to be representing an owner, and I think was just an offer he couldn't refuse. So the upside is that we have a local now. I've had a chance to meet with Jeff a couple of times, and he's just dynamite, just already on it, really has the community involvement piece going. So he's helping me just wrap up some loose ends, and just the shift, I will just be honest, really would set us back a few weeks. And so I was not prepared to bring that today. But we will be here next month with the architect and with our owner's rep to provide the community with an update on the outreach, and hopefully we'll have dates so that people can start to mark their calendars as we kick this process off. So I'm super excited about that. Just a couple of things I wanted to mention. I think both Linda and Lee mentioned, but the EBCMB event, June 16th, 11 to 1:30. Is that right, Linda? It's 11 to 1:30 on
That's
Underhill
correct.
Plaza. Okay.
Right.
So everyone be there, be square. I will be there. We also have a busy day on June 15th. So NCRD will be sort of the final community outreach event for the sort of Tri-Village Transportation System Plan. And I really encourage everyone, if you haven't had a chance, there's also going to be an online survey that accompanies that, and we'll post some stuff on the website for folks. But I really hope that folks, if you have a chance or are interested, please attend. This project really puts forward it's our 20-year plan for transportation improvements. So I'm really excited about it. Manzanita actually had the best showing in terms of community outreach. So I just want to say thank you to our citizens who took the time to participate. And those of you that did probably notice that your feedback was taken and things were changed. And so I just want to encourage people to go to visit. There's still time to provide input. I will be there for a chunk of that meeting, but like the rest of the people on this call, we have the budget meeting to adopt the budget on June 15th as well. And that begins at 6 o'clock. So be here for that. And to help support the TSP meeting, I'm actually going to be tabling at the farmers market with ODOT and some of the other city staff for at least the first couple hours of the market. So please stop by. We'll hopefully get some more folks interested in attending that. And finally, just the Planning Commission meeting, June 20th, 4 o'clock. And other than that, I think that's all I've got for tonight.
Okay. Well, before we adjourn, I'm going to make the same comments that I made this afternoon. We have a different audience here tonight. I'm sure everybody knows that by now that I'm not planning to run for another term as mayor. I've served in various committees for the city for the last 17 years. And I want to ask all of you to check out the Manzanita candidate guide, which is on the front page of the city's website, where you can apply for a position with the city. The mayor position is open, and so are a couple of city councilor positions. And you have all the way up till, I believe it's the end of August to apply. And it's really healthy for our community if we have multiple candidates in competitive races. And so please consider serving your community that we all love. So,
and if I could just add, folks, yeah, so we created that flyer. Please check it out. You do have to meet with me. I am the city's elections officer. So you have to meet with me with your forms, or 2 forms that you need to fill out. And one of them actually requires you to get 20 signatures. And so I need to see that and talk with you before you go out and collect those signatures. And those steps will be necessary in order to get your name on the ballot. The deadline is August 30th. To submit your signatures, but it's best to get it in sooner than later because the county also has to validate those signatures. So if for some reason you have an invalid signature and you only submitted 20 signatures and you submitted on the 30th, you won't have time to resubmit. So just, I would say, be cautious and prepare in advance and come meet with me. I look forward to talking to you.
No questions or comments from anybody else? Okay, thank you, everybody. We're adjourned.
Thank you.